not quite 48 hours from inauguration, so thank you so much for spending your first times here with us. I just wanted everybody to get a chance to hear your story. So you ran for council back in 2010?
Yes, 2010. So background on that, I had known at some point in my life I wanted to serve in public office as a council member. And my husband and I had moved here about 2007. And it was fun. We were remembering what it was like in those days and transportation back then. But we were talking about pre-Ellsworth Loop and post-Ellsworth Loop and the difference.
It was a huge change.
Huge
right?
difference. But we had just settled here in 2007, and I had my first daughter. And there was 3 incumbents on the town council that had decided they weren't going to run again. And so if you're ever going to run for public office, that is the perfect time to do it when you don't have to run against the incumbents. But 9 people also thought it was a great idea. And so it definitely wasn't an easy race. But I learned a lot and was successful in that first campaign and secured a position on town council in 2010. And so yeah, my daughter was very young, and so it's just been so exciting. Queen Creek, the past 12 years plus the future, I don't think there's ever a time we'll see just the amount of change and development and growth. Like, it's such an exciting time. So I've just been thrilled to be part of it, and yeah, it's been a wild ride for 12 years, and the next 4 years, there's so much momentum, and our trajectory is just so fantastic that it's hard not to be enthusiastic.
Right, talking about the change. So we were talking to town manager John Cross before his retirement, and during that time, you saw the downturn, the economic recession, and the town had to lay off lots and lots of staff and compress everything, and then it came back. So you've seen massive growth. So the downturn, the massive growth, oversaw the fire department being started, which is just a once in a career kind of thing to begin with. And let alone a police department,
right.
Trash and recycling during that time.
Yeah.
It's been amazing how much the town has been built during that time. So there you are, you've served your 12 years, and you say, I should be mayor?
That's what I say. No, it was not. Those that know me well know it was not in my plans whatsoever. I'm still kind of shocked that I'm in this seat, but yeah, I loved my position on council and really had never thought about mayor. And Mayor Barney had called me when he let me know that he wasn't going to be running for re-election, and had encouraged me to run, and said whenever he thought about the next mayor of Queen Creek, his thoughts kept turning to me, and I was like, oh, that's so nice, Gail. That's just a fantastic thought. And I don't even know if I talked to my husband about it the first time. That's how much thought I put into it. But he called me a few more times, and with different issues facing Queen Creek, and said, okay, let me think about this. Let me talk to the family, really contemplate what it's going to mean for my life, my family's life, and for Queen Creek. And so started to kind of give it the due attention that it deserved. And here I am.
And here you are.
Here awesome. I am. So, but with it took a lot of encouragement. Jeff Brown is here in the audience, and he was a huge supporter, and I really appreciate that. And just encouragement of my fellow council member. And it's not an easy task. It's not an easy position, and especially a growing community like Queen Creek with the potential that we have, it's a lot of demands. And so I just really appreciate all the support that I've had to get me in this position, and I can't do great work without a great council, and that's what I've loved. I've worked with 4 of the council members over the past 12 years. And so we have a great working relationship. But yeah, we have, to your point, when I first came on in 2010, one of the first things we had to do was lay off 40% of our workforce. It was incredibly difficult, but that's what we were facing in those times, right? And so since we've grown, since that point, we've made it a huge priority to grow responsibly and fiscally, what that means, and so that we don't ever have to be to that point again. So
I was going to say, the organization has stayed really flat, and so we appreciate those conservative budgets that you've had year after year. In fact, we were happy to have you representing Queen Creek just because of your voice of reason over all of those years. So we're excited to have you. But those bring up some good points. So over this time period, we've had the same mayor, we've had the same town manager, and now here we are. We have new mayor, new town manager, and 2 new council members. So how does that shape up for the next 4 years, and what should we be expecting?
yeah, it is a lot of change when you think about, so we haven't had 2 new council members in 12 years since when I ran the first time.
We've had them one at a time.
One at a time, exactly. And we haven't had a new mayor in 12 years. Our town manager has been our town manager for 16 years. So we like to hang around in Queen Creek. We like to stay involved. I think it's definitely addicting. But you know, I look a little different than Mayor Barney. I think that's one difference. But beyond that, we work so well as a council, so cohesive, and we had the same visions and goals. And so that's something I'll continue to carry forward as far as how we viewed Queen Creek and our goals and priorities, very much in alignment, as well as our town manager. Our town manager, it's very hard for me to lose our town manager because he's always been one that I've relied on my entire tenure on council. And but also knowing that Bruce Gardner, our new town manager, it will be a seamless transition from my point of view. And along those same lines, similar priorities, we'll both have our own style, and what that is, I don't know yet. I don't know my own style, but we'll find out, right? So, but the same with Bruce Gardner, but I have the utmost confidence in him continuing to move Queen Creek forward and be as successful as we can be. So definitely changes, but overall the vision, the strategy is very much the same. And as far as the impact to residents, to businesses, I don't feel like there will be, they won't notice a change or a difference almost. So we will have our own style, but
no big changes in direction.
No. I think as far as the direction we're on right now is bullseye. Like it's right on. So just.
So part of those would be things like transportation.
Absolutely.
Land planning is really important now. So how do you see some of those areas specifically? And do you have certain priorities in any of those areas? Right.
Land planning is huge. So we have a voter-approved general plan. And for me, that's very important to protect. That's what our voters have said. This is what we agree on. This is where these types of businesses should go. This is where the housing should go, even the multifamily. And so sticking to that is really important. I think when you start to stray from that, you really run into issues. So that's a priority. As far as I'm trying to remember the second part to your transportation. Transportation's always always huge. I mean, to me, I feel like that's the number one issue that residents bring up. And we've been spending hundreds of millions of dollars on transportation. And we continue to make it a focus, a priority. And we're trying to do everything we can. I don't know later if we'll get into legislative issues so much, but with the Prop 400 extension, that's a huge priority for Queen Creek. Queen Creek, with our roads and infrastructure, we have Santan Valley just south of us that's unincorporated, and a majority of their traffic comes through Queen Creek. And it's interesting because but we also have Southeast Gilbert residents, we have Mesa residents. When our police officers do traffic stops and accidents, 80% of those are from outside of Queen Creek.
Pass through.
So I don't know if that just says Queen Creek residents are really good drivers, or which I would like to agree with, or we have a lot of pass-through traffic, right? And so that's what's hard is we have to build roads not only for Queen Creek, but for those that pass-through traffic, because it impacts our Queen Creek residents. So we're building roads, and that is being a regional partner. And I want to share that with all municipalities that surround us to be a good regional partner in transportation, because there's only so much we can do. We can only build roads in Queen Creek. We can't build roads in Mesa or in Pinal County.
The bottleneck on Ellsworth is something that people point out, and Queen Creek has done its part. We built to Germain, three lanes.
3 lanes in each direction all the way through Queen Creek, and that's it's really stifling for Queen Creek. And I know for Mesa it's coming up in a future budget, but it can't be soon enough.
And they're getting ready to start on a piece of it, which puts us back to when Ellsworth was even first built. So
exactly.
It's going to be a little rough for a little while. But,
right. It's going to be a little rough. Hopefully that will help residents use our freeway access points that we've built, that we've been so excited about. No, those are interim. They're just temporary. And it's interesting, I mean, anything in the East Valley, if you build it, they will come. As soon as they built it, they had the funding for just the temporary improvements. As soon as it's built, we need full improvements, right?
You're talking about the 24.
The State Route 24.
And the north-south that we've done, Signal Butte, Ironwood.
Exactly, yep. Meridian, Signal Butte, Ironwood. And so we've been so excited about those connections, and so hopefully that'll kind of train traffic to realize there are other alternate routes to get to State Route 24. But one of the things in the Prop 400 extension that would have been so impactful to Queen Creek is about $150 million for the permanent improvement. That would be an actual real freeway, right?
For the 24.
For the State Route 24.
And 400 is the extension of the sales tax that we passed
yes.
20 years ago, and
yes.
20 years before that.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So that's the extension. It's a half-cent sales tax that we've done for the past 20 years, and then it was started 20 years before that. So for the past 40 years. And the governor vetoed it, and it's left everyone scrambling. Queen Creek was not able to participate in receiving funds. And so we have never had any of those funds diverted to Queen Creek for our arterial streets. So we've been at a huge disadvantage. So with this Prop 400 extension, for the first time, we would have been included in the plan to receive funds for our arterial streets. So right now, we've been funding it 100% local.
And we're talking $195 million for that first 5-year plan, and still going in a rolling 5-year time period. So a significant amount of money. I think that was one of the interesting things on this election cycle. Some people brought up the idea of working around the clock on roads. Some people brought up no more development until the roads are in. But it doesn't really work that way, right?
Right. And development is responsible for improving the streets that they impact. But it's working together with development as far as municipalities, but regionally as well. I mean, a small city like Queen Creek can't build State Route 24 on their own. We can't tax our residents to come up with 150 million to build it to the permanent construction. And it's a regional issue, right? It's not just our 70,000 residents that use it, it's so much more. And as we continue to grow, the demands are even greater. So transportation continues to be top priority. We're spending a lot of money. It's a huge focal point. We definitely have constraints that we're under as far as funding sources being taken away, impact from outside pass-through traffic, and of course, other municipalities that surround us as well. So
a lot more complicated than what you see on Facebook.
Yes, I wish it was an easy answer.
I think in the next year or two, we'll see. We already did a major piece of Ocotillo, so that was nice, heading into the Ironwood area, and coming to the other side of town now. Ocotillo will get finished, and Chandler Heights will get finished, and so a lot of our east-west connectors will actually get finished in the next year, and those are already programmed, right? So
yes,
that's really exciting, and again, a long ways from when we were waiting for the loop road to get done.
There's honestly nothing more beautiful. I say all the time when we're driving, there's nothing more beautiful than a new roadway project that's finished, and it's like, oh my gosh, I love that. And then it's hard to even remember what it was like before.
Right?
So, yeah.
So moving on a little bit from transportation, and we talked a little bit about the general plan, which lays out where things go. We're getting more of our retail coming, and I think two big things that are the focus of land use now are industrial users and then multifamily. And what are some of your thoughts on some of those areas?
Great. So I'm super excited about the development coming. I've got to make a plug really quick about actually right here, our connector streets between Ellsworth Road and Ellsworth Loop Road. I'm super excited about this. So we're doing some connector streets, and right now they're just big swaths of dirt and open land, right? And which we will miss eventually, but this is the heart and core of our downtown, and that's something that I'm super passionate about. And so we have full improvements for that, on-street parking and sidewalks and the drainage and all of the things that come along with it. But it allows these parcels that really have not been able to develop because they don't have front access really, now they can develop. Now they'll have roadway access. And so we break ground on that literally, I think the day after, which we had been working with, but the Perch from Chandler, a very successful restaurant there, just made an application to build. And so that's very, very exciting. So again, the Perch has been working on it for some time, but you see the public investment and immediately after see the private investment as well. And usually it's for every dollar we invest, the private industry invests 3. So we see our return on our money times 3. So I'm really excited about that. But you touched on our employment areas as well. The state trust land, which is in the northeast part of our community, that's something as a council we've worked on for easily a decade. Being the municipality that the state trust land chose to annex that parcel into their community. And so when we got that and were able to annex that, I think that was in 19 or 2020, just the possibilities are fantastic because we've been so focused, and again, we'll continue to be focused on roadways because so many of our residents, I forget the statistic, but a very high statistic of our residents commute to work. And everyone knows commute time drastically lowers the quality of life. Like, it's horrific. And so to be able to finally bring jobs to our residents and cut that commute time down, and not just jobs, but living wage jobs. And so we've announced LG and their investment in the community, and we'll continue. We're seeing a lot of interest in that area. We'll continue to see development there. Multifamily is a difficult conversation, right? Because generally what we hear from our residents, they don't love it. It makes sense in certain areas. And this is something that I've asked our staff to take a look at and really tune in, where does it make sense to have multifamily. And part of our downtown core study that we've done, generally you see density in a downtown area, but also next to employment as well. And so those are the areas where I see it, as well as along freeways. And so for myself personally, those are the two areas that make sense. And again, we have 4,100 acres of our state trust land in the northeast area of town, and right along the freeway, next to that employment. So it seems to make the most sense there. It is difficult because we all love our home values. Like, it's fantastic, but for people trying to buy their first home, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And so you have to have that diversity of that diversity of housing. It's not necessarily all multifamily apartments. I mean, townhomes absolutely make sense, but really just having that diversity of family or diversity of housing. Diverse families are great too, but diversity of housing, and so that we can attract employers that have a workforce that either are going to come from here or be drawn to relocating here, that have an affordability that they can also live where they work.
Yeah, I think one of the things we strive for is that diversity of housing stock. So not everybody wants to live in a large acre home. Some people want condos or larger zero lot loan homes. So having that mix is important. And then the economists have been saying that we haven't built enough family housing, which is why we're seeing that 27% increase over the last year or two. We're starting to come down a little bit, but and talking to our counterparts in say Gilbert, they tend to concentrate all of their apartments together. So you can see them all in one spot, 1,500, 2,000 apartments in one spot, and I think that's giving people the anxiety about multifamily. But you as a council, a couple of months ago, directed staff to go and do that study that you just mentioned. Is it the idea was to spread out the multifamily?
The idea, so right now multifamily can essentially locate anywhere that there's residential zoning, but it doesn't make sense to have multifamily in all residential areas. It makes sense in certain areas, and so really, I mean, our residents have spoken. They do not like apartment complexes, and so that's the balance, right? Is there's always a balance with things. With density, you see a lot of the development that we like to see, the mom and pop shops and local restaurants and retail and things like that. They want to go where density is, right? And so, but if you don't allow that, you're not going to see more of that type of development. So it's just trying to find that balance, making sure it's in the right location. Again, in my mind, it makes sense closer to the freeway, the employment areas, not in the employment areas, but there's residential surrounding it. We need to absolutely protect our employment areas. But part of that new 4,100 acres, we will see some of that in there as well.
And in the town center that you mentioned as well. So
in town center as well. I think just a lot of
plan in town center.
A lot of residents are worried about the apartment complex popping up right across the street from them, and but we are seeing, like you're saying, a lot of people prefer the rent by choice, right? They prefer the lock and leave, and they don't have the backyard, and so we need to be able to have that diversity for all of our residents.
Yeah, you mentioned the crossroads that are going in right next to our building, and the north-south connector there, and so that's all town-owned land. The town's been very specific and strategic about buying certain parcels because it allows you to determine how things get built, what gets built, so you have a little bit more control rather than just whatever fits the zoning. So we're excited to see that. But you just mentioned the perch. That's a new one. But you have those out for bid.
For the parcels?
Yeah. And the ones around the library.
Yes, we do. So yeah, we'll continue to see more development, and our downtown, you only get the chance to develop your downtown once, right? Unless you go through the development process later if you didn't get it right the first time. So we are very strategic in our downtown. It's interesting because on a council meeting, well, just this last Wednesday, we did a text amendment that for storage facilities that they wouldn't be able to locate in commercial areas, which it is good, thank you. Which it's difficult because there's an argument for the free market, right? Like let the free market dictate. And but in certain areas, our town center, our downtown is one of them where you just need to be strategic. And so that is why the town owns land, so that we can help develop our town center to be the way we envision it.
So with those parcels, you can say no storage lockers, even though they might fit the zoning. You can say that's not part of our vision, but those parts the town doesn't own, they could come, and if they fit the zoning, then it's free market, and there they go. Auto repair, car washes, etc. So that's how people come to see those things and then complain on Facebook. But
yes,
again, free market and America. But so we have those parcels set aside, and there's a great visioning project, and you can find that at the town's website, and also I think it's Invest the QC, the town's economic development department has put that together, so people can go out and take a look at that. A little bit about legislation, so some important bills out there that are coming up. Anything in particular that you want to talk about?
So legislation, it's always trying to protect local control, which to me, being a local elected leader, that is top priority, because I feel like those that are closest to the people have the best representation of what they want and what they need. So just trying to keep and maintain that local control. One thing that's difficult right now, and one thing that we focus on as a council is keeping and reducing our tax burden on our residents. So it's really exciting. I don't know if you saw, but a few council meetings ago, we voted unanimously to decrease our property tax rate. And so we've committed to that over the next 5 years. And so that's something, I mean, you really don't hear of any municipality doing that. It's always more and more, right? But so that's really exciting. It's difficult. Like one of the things we're facing right now is the state wants to cut food sales tax, which on the surface sounds fantastic. When you look at it, it really only affects about 36% of Arizonans, just because in unincorporated areas, they don't charge on food, they don't charge a tax on food. And then your cities like Mesa, Phoenix, Tucson, they don't charge food tax either. Now, as a mayor, I would love to get to that point, but those cities are built out. Queen Creek has a long way to go before we're built out. And we're building so much, we're having to invest so much into our infrastructure right now. And again, we got to do it right the first time, right? So we have so much infrastructure to lay, whether it's transportation, whether it's water, wastewater, all of the things that I want to get to that point. But that alone is an impact to our budget of $5 million. And so it makes it hard when we're trying to do the right thing and cut taxes for our residents. And then this revenue source for us is immediately cut as well. And so being able to have that local control to when we are very strategic and have everything projected out as far as what we're building, the funds. And so again, getting to that point would be fantastic. One thing, and I love the fact that we were able to reduce our property taxes. We talked about the pass-through traffic, and really with our sales tax and food tax, that's really our only way to recapture the demand that that pass-through traffic has on not only our roads, but QCPD as well in their response. And so in my mind, that's a way to recapture those taxes from people from outside of Queen Creek to be able to provide for the demands that we have in those areas.
Because they're coming into town to shop.
Yeah,
So it spreads
exactly.
it out across everybody, not just
Right.
the property owners in Queen Creek.
And then reducing property taxes specifically goes to our residents of Queen Creek, which we represent. So
I think the local control issue is
it's every year.
it's really good. I love our state legislature. They look at the federal government and say, hey, local control for us, and then
Well, that's the thing, right? They get so upset if the federal takes funds from them at a state level, and then they turn around and do the same thing and take funds from us at a local
to the
level.
municipality. Where,
Yeah.
Some arguments are better if we have them here in town rather than at the State House. So local control, really important issue. Anything that we haven't touched on that you wanted to
There was another, and these are all new legislation. We are working with Chandler, Phoenix, Intel, LG, TSMC, lifting the artificial cap on the state statute on advanced manufacturing programs. So again, with our LG development, right now there's an artificial cap on that. But what this would do, it would allow for funding of up to 80% of public infrastructure associated with the capital improvements. And that's for projects of over 50 million. So essentially what that is, that's a big push for us because the funding comes through projects generated through their share of the state construction tax, and then it provides that investment back into the community that will house it. So that's a big thing that we're working on with those municipalities and those companies.
So essentially, if we were to land a major employer and had to do a lot of infrastructure work, then the state would share in some of that cost because there's a benefit to the state as well.
Exactly. And they do right now, it's just a limited amount. So when we're talking about everything that's going on in Chandler, everything that's going on in Phoenix, the big expansion of Intel and TSMC, it has to be shared through all of those.
And they used it all up at those projects.
Right, and it's not smaller projects. I mean, these are big investments into communities, and it's the public infrastructure that it allows that reimbursement for. So that's a big push for us as well. Trying to think what else on it. They're always bringing new stuff every day at the state. So
every
we gotta
minute is something new.
stay up to date. But Yeah.
Anything outside of legislature that you wanted to touch on that we haven't talked about?
Just really continuing to provide a high quality of life. I talked earlier when we were mingling about, what Queen Creek is to kind of each of us. And so trying to maintain what the Queen Creek was when you moved here and the Queen Creek we know today, trying to maintain that with all of the growth that's happening, and providing those opportunities to still be a small town, even though we've grown, is huge for me. We have a lot of exciting things happening. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary of QCPD. So they're a fantastic department, and the last 5 years we've built 5 fire stations. We're building our brand new Frontier Family Park, which will be a regional park, absolutely beautiful, on the north kind of east side of Queen Creek, that will have our aquatic center and our multi-gen center. And so trying to be strategic in so many areas and doing things like we didn't touch on our water, but water, doing things so strategic. We've been planning for our water with the help of our fantastic staff for years before drought was an issue, because we live in Arizona, right? So it's always going to be an issue. And so it's just fantastic that Queen Creek is in the position we are today. We have a 100-year assured water supply. We're constantly working on strategic things to add to that, and our renewable supplies for water. And so doing all these things strategically, and the investments we've made specifically in our water annually saves our residents $6 million a year.
Wow.
So significant things like that. We're the only municipality in Arizona that has a fully funded pension. That saves tremendous funds as well. And so doing things strategic on the financial side, which allow us to be able to provide the quality of living that we love. I love how active our residents are. Our trails, huge fan. I love our trails. I love that our parks connect on our trails. And so just being able to provide those things to our residents, and doing it at the lowest cost. It's so impactful. It's such meaningful work. And so I love what I do, and this new position will just give me more of an opportunity to do it.
It certainly will. Any questions from the audience?
I have a question regarding multifamily.
Yeah.
First of all, it'd be great if, it could be affordable.
Right.
Because they're putting these things in, $2,000, $2,500 a month is not, these families are struggling, young families coming in. That's a full mortgage payment. Specifically, there's a developer proposing to put in a 400 unit place near the Home Depot, and we're talking about transportation. It's going to add another 400 vehicles to that immediate area. It's zoned commercial. I live right there. Majority of my neighbors do not want this coming in. And the extended stay right across the street was voted down by Gilbert. There's more multifamily that's going to add a lot more at Williams Field and Power that's being proposed. And I think it's zoned commercial, and I think, majority of my neighbors and myself, we don't want additional congestion there. I own a business right there. I would benefit from that. But living there, it's like, give me another grocery store, give me more great restaurants and more pedestrian-oriented, community centered in that area. It's been sitting there forever.
Right.
And I don't know where the process is. I know you guys are getting feedback, from the community, and what's that area looking like in the future?
So you're absolutely right. It is zoned commercial. So one of the things I touched on was protecting our voter-approved general plan. So for me, if it's zoned commercial, it needs to be commercial. that's what we voted on. That's what we've approved on. I've actually had specific conversations with the developer and let them know that specifically. And they have put the brakes on it multiple times, and developers are very persistent. So I can't say they won't continue to try.
Sure.
And it depends on the makeup of the council, right? But from where I'm sitting, it has to make sense within that area.
Yeah.
And it's zoned commercial for a reason. And that's what I've expressed to the developer specifically, because I've had multiple conversations. But we need to protect those areas and stay true to our general plan.
I think of like what would benefit the community the most.
And it's difficult because, like you said, when these apartments come in, they come in at market rate. So I'm trying to remember. I think a one bedroom average was like $2,100, which is like more than my mortgage. Yeah, and so that's the difficult thing is we can't, when they come in and build, we can't dictate how much they charge, right? So they charge market rate. So on one hand, someone would argue, well, just build more multifamily, and then the more demand will lower the cost, and so we will have lower rates for our children and college students, and so that's the other side of the argument, right? But really, for me, it goes back to what's the original intent. I don't want to be the one that comes in and says, yeah, they got all that wrong.
Yeah. And to maintain the qualities of the community, I moved here, 20 years ago.
Right.
And that's.
And you've been planning on it being commercial.
Oh yeah, and that's what I was born and raised with, and that's why I chose Queen Creek as
Yeah.
my home.
I think in most cases you'll find, like when we go and talk on your behalf at council, I think one of my favorite closing lines is, we have a good plan, stick to the plan, and almost 9 times out of 10, council has stuck to the plan, so that's been really good. It lends a lot of stability.
I love our
Stability and a surety. Yeah.
Because you can make that investment in your business.
Yeah, and stability,
And no.
And community.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a grocery store would do very well there. And I've heard from the residents that
Yes.
they would frequent that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah.
My question is about downtown, and just if you mentioned you're passionate about that, if you could elaborate a little bit on the vision. So I think of downtown Gilbert, downtown Chandler, Mesa, obviously very different, although much older. But can you elaborate a little bit on what that vision is 20 years from now?
Oh, good question. It's hard to articulate. I just know there's
a picture.
right. Well, we do have it.
Invest the QC
Yeah, go to invest in the QC. There is a town center plan
and a visioning map.
and a visioning map, and that's the vision. So that's the best way to kind of to get a feel for it. But truly a walkable downtown where you have those retail mixed with restaurants. And pedestrian friendly, and what I also love about these connector streets are there's is it one or two little parks, little areas where you can go out where there's green space and you can eat together, play together. But we do have great models to look to, only as far as Gilbert down the road, they have a great downtown. I know Queen Creek will have our own flavor, our own flair to that. But yes, Invest in the QC is a great website. It gives visuals and really helps you.
I think one of the important things to bring up is the code that you passed for town center specifically. So there's town center zoning.
Yes.
And council led the way on that. And so they don't have to have the setbacks off the street, so you can build to the sidewalk.
Yep.
And shared parking rather
parking.
than having a giant asphalt lot.
Yes, which parking can be very prohibitive, especially when we're in downtown, so the land itself is very costly, right?
On-street parking.
Yes, on-street parking. And
None of the big drainage swells. They're shared drainage, so everybody can have an underground pipe and move it off to the wash.
yeah, drainage is a huge cost for development. So being able to partner with that, and
height.
height, you're allowed to build higher. I think I'm trying to remember, is it
3 or 4?
36 or 48? Yeah.
Yeah, 3 or 4 stories.
On this street?
On this street.
Is that what's going in across the way?
Across the street, I know there will be a 2-story building.
Dawson's is smaller.
Yeah.
But over here, it's possible, or by the library, you could see taller buildings. But I think one of the other interesting things when council was doing that was having the ground floor retail, commercial. So you could have a restaurant, you could have other things. And I think about the one project, so I think from your perspective, and you fill in, developers always bring a great plan, a great vision, and you're going to see stuff just like New York with the nice deli and the mom and pop shops downstairs, and then you're going to have the apartments upstairs, and then by the time we're done, it's basically apartments with like a drive-through out in front, right?
So true.
And I think the Gilbert project, though, over
Wheatley?
yeah, with the air guitar. I think that's
yeah.
one of the first ones that I've
That's
seen
been successful at doing that.
Actually got
Yeah,
it going.
yeah.
So hopefully we'll see some more of that. But
So it is interesting. I'm glad you brought up the things that they can do that are less restrictive, right? Where they can build to the street line, have the shared parking model, things like that. On the restrictive side, no drive-throughs.
right.
We talked about the storage centers, things like that. So there's things we're doing to protect that land. Well, you could say it was restrictive, but also being less restrictive in a lot of other areas to allow flexibility, creativity, to truly create that walkable downtown.
That's great. That's great.
It is
And
great.
Parking on both sides of this street?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, nose in too. So years ago we had that big debate, and we ended up with the parallel parking
Yes.
along where Rudy's used to be, and so
Yes.
now we're back to the nose in parking. So that'll be helpful.
And it is one nice thing about town-owned land is the town can say, we want to see family entertainment. We want to see a movie theater. We want to see, so we can be specific in that. We want to see office space, which is nice, especially in a downtown area, to be able to kind of carry out that vision.
Yeah, really good forethought on that. So
If you don't mind,
Yeah.
would you touch a little bit on education for us?
Sure.
What your priorities are with the schools, kids, teachers?
We're very blessed to have a great school district. I work really well with the superintendent, as well as so many charter schools, public schools. It's actually this week that we recognize, I just did a proclamation for school choice because we have so many choices as well as homeschooling, right? So, so education is different as far as I don't have a lot of say or over education besides just partnering with our school district to make sure. One thing that's really important to them is they work with our planners to find out, okay, where are the new developments going, where are the new houses going, so they can plan appropriately for where their schools are going to be located and what the future demands in their classrooms are going to be. It's hard. I know Queen Creek Queen Creek Unified, they've had bonds the last couple of years that haven't passed, and it's difficult with the amount of growth that we're seeing. I know from a town level, and then you carry that through to a school level to be able to have the capital to build those schools for all those students that are coming in. So yeah, we're very blessed to have great educational opportunities in Queen Creek, and just continuing to support them and to support all, whether it's public or charter or private or homeschool, but just continuing to have a good working relationship between town, school board. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Mayor, on your first 48 hours. We appreciate you being here, and we look forward to working with you over the next 4 years.
Likewise. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.